Welcome to the B&R Podcast. Deuces. For those of you who watched our last podcast, which is really kind of our inaugural podcast, we have a catalog of works. But timing-wise, we really wanted to
stay current.
Yeah. Talk about, look, the Charlie Kirk assassination was definitely something that was going to take center stage. It was just going to. Charlie Kirk was an amazing human being, an amazing American. And there was this or not, but I watched a very interesting video, and it was a guy from the UK, and he was literally thanking Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Charlie Kirk. And he said, and this, by the way, this was said before Charlie Kirk got assassinated. He said, without these people, the UK citizens, the born and bred, the actual, Englishmen, if you will, Mad Dogs and Englishmen, they wouldn't be in the streets right now demanding justice, demanding that their will, because you elect somebody to represent you. The problem that's happened in the UK is that the representation no longer cares about the citizenry. It's insane, to be honest with you, and it's worse in the EU, because in the EU you have a whole group of unelected bureaucrats that are making laws that affect your life. Now, yes, there was Brexit and all that stuff, but there's a lot going on there that I don't think Americans even have a clue.
No, you look at Germany, Spain, France is collapsing.
France is done.
They're collapsing.
Go figure. Yeah. Who would have thought it?
And again, you're talking about the UK. Well, and if you think that that's not going to be a conversation this next day and a half with the Don over there, we're pretty much kidding ourselves.
Yeah.
Because when you see the uprisings that are happening, and this is over basic freedoms of speech.
Basic. Human rights.
Yeah.
It's your human right, in my opinion, to be able to stand up and say, no. There's a woman in the UK, in England. I'll say in England. I'll stop calling it UK because I know a lot of Americans get a little confused about that. Yep. There's a woman in England who, her only offense was she tweeted or X'd, I don't want my tax money going to support these immigrants. They showed up at her house and arrested her. The judge, you think we got lefty nutjob judges here? The judge said, and I quote, your offense was so egregious that I have no choice but to give you 2-point-some years behind bars.
For saying I don't want my tax dollars allocated towards this.
Yeah, how insane is that?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what they're dealing with. They're dealing with it's Louisville.
It's insane.
It's insane. And King Charles, and I'm not gonna blaspheme the king. Okay, I know
they really don't.
There's been kings and queens of England for 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Their history books we can't even wrap our head around. When a student, high school or elementary school in England says they hate history, yeah, I can only imagine because that's a lot to learn. So anyway, to me, it's a basic right to be able to stand up and look at your government that is elected. We're not talking about some kind of prison camp. Or elected and saying this is what I want, this is what I don't want, but now they're arresting them. That's just beyond the pale.
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
Beyond the pale. And by the way, Donald Trump, and here's why they love people who say that the whole world laughs at us because of Donald Trump. That is so much fun. That is so much disinformation. Because I'm going to tell you something. Donald Trump actually brought it up to the UK or the English government. And he basically said, I don't know that I can convince the American people to keep doing business with somebody who doesn't give their citizens free speech. What other president would have done that? Sleepy Joe? No.
Yeah,
he wasn't sure if his diaper was full or not.
That's true.
Yeah. So, I did want to say one more thing about England before we move on. There's always going to be a kinship and a close tie. Always a close tie. For better or worse, our common language is English. Our common law is English. And, I think that there are brothers, and we cannot let them be taken over by the leftists. We have to stand up. And I'm not advocating military intervention. I'm not advocating. No. We've lost enough people in Europe. Okay, we have enough white headstones peppering English and French and German countrysides all over England or all over Europe. We don't need that anymore. But what we do need to do is use our ability to manipulate markets to say, hey, look, if you want to do business with us, okay, your people need a say. Your people, you can't be arresting people at 2 in the morning. Now, some people may go, well, look, you get up on that high horse. Does Roger Stone ring a bell? Yeah, no, listen. Whenever leftists are in power, like they are in England, whenever leftists are in power, they arrest people at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. That's what they do. And that's if you're just lucky. You get arrested. Could be worse. So, but that's all I have to say about England. These are our English brothers, our English cousins. And we can't. And we have to stop letting people like Rosie O'Donnell go over there and make us all look like idiots. But I tell you, the funniest thing I've seen was they interviewed the Irish, I guess, the president. See, Northern Ireland belongs to England, and the rest of Ireland is its own sovereign nation. Correct me in the comment section if I had that wrong. But anyway, they asked the president of Ireland about Rosie O'Donnell. You know what he said? Never heard of her.
There you go.
Never heard of her.
The O'Donnells. Oh,
yeah. Hopefully, Colin McGregor pulls off a victory over there because Colin McGregor gets it.
He's a common sense person.
He gets it. He understands. He understands culture. He understands language, history, all the things that make a people who they are. Yeah. Why they've tried to, I think it's the globalists. They tried to destroy any shred of commonality that any of us have. Especially in the United States, because we're a melting pot here. Your family came from Japan. My family came from Switzerland. And quick story. My original family that came here was a guy named Joseph Yeager. My last name, real name is Yeager. He got to the United States and he wanted to take the English translation of his name, Joseph being into John and Yeager into Hunter. So he became John Hunter. And that to him was very important, and this would have been way back, because he wanted to, hold on, take a deep breath, he wanted to assimilate. He wanted to melt into the pot.
Well, and you bring up a great point. And do you remember seeing Schwarzenegger on The View?
Yeah. Well, which time?
Well, I think it was the last time, but they were talking about the immigration. And he said, "Hold on a second." He goes, "You come here, you're a guest."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Guess what? When you're a guest,
you make your bed, you clean your,
you keep a clean house."
Yeah.
And they were shocked.
They thought because he is kind of rhino-ish.
Yeah.
I think they thought that he would be sympathetic because he was also an immigrant.
But I also believe that he knows coming over here with 2 nickels to rub together and to make the life that he made, because he wasn't spoon-fed.
No.
He made his life.
He made it. Yeah. Hey, by the way, just like with my great-great-great-great-grandfather, Joseph Yeager, he didn't come over here with the Swiss flag. And I'm sure your grandparents didn't come over here with the rising sun.
They weren't slinging the rising sun around. But going back to what you were saying about your family, I mean, they came here for a better life. I mean, why else do you do what you do?
Yeah.
And I can tell you this: my grandmother had a restaurant downtown in Toledo, but so did Shirley's mom, grandma.
Yeah.
They had a restaurant also, but when my grandma passed away, we found like a huge box full of IOUs. She would never let anybody go hungry.
Yeah.
You weren't going to go hungry.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just the way that, their brains operated. And,
well, no, I mean,
they worked out for people.
Common decency. I remember seeing a woman who was a farm, she owned a farm, or her parents owned a farm, or grandparents owned a farm during the Great Depression. And she said that the Great Depression didn't hurt them as much because they had a lot of their own food that they grew.
They could
But she said people would come to their door at least a couple of times a week, passing through, asking for a sandwich. And she said that her grandmother would make them a sandwich and didn't charge them anything. Because they had it. She made her own bread, she made her own, everything. They made everything themselves off the farm. But things have changed so much in this country for the worse. Anyway, here I am.
Everybody wants.
Yeah. Well, not just that, but for some strange reason, these young people, they just have this weird communistic attitude. It's just, they believe that what's yours is theirs, and what's theirs is theirs. So, anyway, let's get back to the Discord thing.
Yeah.
So I think I explained to you, it's basically a website, and it has lots of subgroups, and one of them is furry, and one of them is transvestite. There's tons of them, endless counts. But there was one in particular, it was the furry one, I believe. It might have been transvestite life, I don't know, fat life, whatever. And there were a lot of people in there that, because of the things that they had messaged back and forth, told the FBI, once the FBI was made aware of this, that assassination was coordinated, planned, and at the very least knew about. If you know about somebody that's going to get killed, you know in advance, and you don't tell the police,
you're an accomplice.
You're an accomplice. And to be honest with you, and if you help that person after the fact, then you become an accomplice after the fact. All of which is punishable by serious jail time, and it should be. So, from my understanding, Kash Patel said that there is a lot of people they're looking at.
Yeah, I heard the number is substantial. And
here's the thing, because I've heard this from conservative women. I'm sorry, girls, you gotta find some strength here. 22-year-olds are not children. They're old enough to buy Jack Daniels by the case. Okay. I actually heard a woman who is conservative. She voted Trump 3 times. And because I said that what needs to happen with the shooter, the guy that pulled the trigger, at the very least, he needs to get the death penalty. I don't care if it's firing squad, I don't care if it's the rope, I don't care if he needs to do it. She's like, he's so young. I know, do not come at me with that. No. He's so young. He's not a child. Somehow in this country, we have started to believe that, and I think part of it had to do with Barack Obama's Obamacare. Here's what I mean by that. You were allowed to stay on your parents' medical insurance till you were 26 or 27. 26 years old. Okay, and so I think that people in people's minds, they're just kids. They need our help. No, listen, 22-year-old murdered, a cold-blooded murder. Look down that scope at almost 200 yards and pulled the trigger on a guy that had 2 children and a wife.
Yeah, this wasn't accidental. I ran a stop sign or a stoplight. This was premeditated.
Yeah. Well, I was cleaning my rifle and it went off, and oh my God, and as a shooter, and you're a shooter, we have always been told from the very beginning, when that bullet leaves the barrel, you own it.
It's yours.
It's yours. Whatever damage is done, it's yours. Yep. And whether you meant for that bullet to leave that barrel or not. Now, in this case, the dude absolutely meant for that to leave. But he's 22 years old. He's not a child. He's plenty old enough to be given the final cigarette while he's tied to a post and with a bandana over his eyes. I mean, it's almost romantic when you think about it, but that's what needs to happen to him. But I will say this, and you take this for what it's worth. I found it ironic that his transvestite, okay, not a trans person, transvestite boyfriend, so chick with a dick, whatever, rolled over on him so quickly. He was singing like a freaking canary. Yeah. It just, because he realized that this whole I'm a furry, I'm mentally ill, wasn't going to save his ass. It wasn't going to.
Oh, and you're not going to get that I'm a furry in prison either.
Oh, you'll get the furry.
You're not going to have your separate bathroom.
No. When you're sitting on that toilet in the cell, from everything I've ever seen, not personally seen, but seen, it's a porcelain toilet with no seat.
It's an open forum.
Yeah. Although when I was in boot camp in the Marine Corps, they had, I don't remember now, but every squad they had a shower and a bath or toilet area, and all the toilets, there was all next to each, just like that.
Oh yeah. What's going on?
Yeah, exactly. You lose all of your modesty in a hurry because it just doesn't exist. If you got to take a deuce, you're gonna sit on the porcelain. So, but I think this guy actually might embrace all that. Although he won't. Look, he's cutting deals, and I'm actually for him. I'm not talking to Shooter. I'm talking to his boyfriend or girlfriend. I don't want to misgender that person. The chick with the dick he was actually living with and fucking. Okay. I'm okay with it getting deals as long as it means that the trigger puller loses his life, because that has to happen. And here's why it has to happen. I think we've gotten far away from, crime and punishment doesn't have to be complicated. It didn't used to be complicated. The truth is, we've gotten away from the deterrent of the death penalty, and that's what it is. These young people today, I won't call them kids. These young people today, they need to understand that for every action there's a reaction, because they apparently missed that day in school. There's a price to pay, and bottom line, that price may be their own lives.
Well, and again, I believe that the word consequences, I don't think that it's been followed up with many of folks. And
that's why I think it should be. Don't you think that it should be either pay-per-view or free to the public to watch?
F around and find out.
Yeah, in the most extreme way. Yeah, in the most extreme way.
And it's unfortunate that our society has gotten to this point to where, first of all, the value of life
is meaningless.
Nothing.
It's meaningless.
These people are freaking soulless.
Yeah.
To have that type of thought process that a living, breathing human being has so little worth.
Yeah.
It's sad.
And I don't know that there's any connection with this or not, but I will tell you that when you degrade American society by allowing lots and lots of undocumented people, and you get this, then here's why I say this, and I don't care if you agree with this, don't agree with this, but you can find this particular video that I'm going to talk about on the interwebs. I think it was 8 women in a Mexican village, one of which apparently ratted out some narco terrorist group, but they didn't know who. So they took 8 of those women, put them on their knees in the middle of the town, dirt. This is Peasantville, and one by one, I've seen the video, all of it. Took a machete that wasn't even sharp and hacked and sawed each one of their heads off. So if you were last in line, I guess it's a double-edged sword in a lot of ways, because out of the corner of your eye, you could see the Grim Reaper coming for you. And every time they would whack that head off, the body would just collapse. And that was, one punishment for telling the federales what was going on, in Medellin or wherever it was they were. But when you let a group of people infiltrate your culture, and they bring a culture of evilness, because I believe this is no longer right or wrong, it's good and evil.
It is good and evil.
It's good and evil.
It's dark and light.
That's right. And you pick a side. And maybe a young person goes, well, I want to go to the dark side, Yeah, you keep saying it, but that's why you're going to see the repercussions from being on the dark side, and it will be the end of your life. Here's the funny thing, and maybe you want to move on, maybe you don't, but here's the funny thing about the Discord thing. These young people are supposed to be so technology-wise or sophisticated group of people that grew up with this stuff. All of them, when they found out that Charlie Kirk was killed, all of them deleted their former post After they did, well, one person said, well, that's that. And then he thought about it, he goes, oh shit, he deleted that. You don't delete from the interwebs.
Yeah, they just don't disappear.
They don't disappear. The FBI has all of that.
Yeah.
And there's going to be people that are going to have to answer. I just hope and pray that the American people are ready to deal out justice to young people because,
I'm interested to see if there's any of these bigger groups that were actually funding this. You know what I'm saying?
Soros organizations. George Soros has literally tried to destabilize the West for the last 40 years. And if you don't know who George Soros is, he's a billionaire. He made his billions shorting the British pound and tried to destroy that country. At one point, he was a member of the Nazi SS. I'm not joking. His job as a Jew at I think Dachau or Auschwitz was to go in the back door of the shower rooms and put him and other Jews would pick up the corpses of the gassed, put them in wheel carts, and then wheel them off to the crematorium. That was his job. So, I mean, some people have tried to justify it by saying, well, he was 12, 13 years old. He had to eat. He was starving. All this nonsense. There's actually a photo, I've seen it today, of George Soros in a Nazi SS uniform from that time period.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, and this is a guy that we have allowed to run roughshod over the West and do things that's, and the funny thing is, Vladimir Putin has a warrant out for him.
Really?
Yeah. He's had it out for a long time. Vladimir Putin believes that he's committed all kinds of crimes, and I believe the same.
Oh, funding them? Yeah. Yep.
Anyway, so bigger groups that are funding these terrorist cells in this country. And by the way, that's exactly, I don't care if it was just this dude and his furry girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. These are terrorist cells. And they're active right now. Bill and I are making a podcast, but there are people right now plotting.
There are, and I don't want to get too far away from where we're talking about, but this all comes together. Mm-hmm. I was watching the hearing today with Patel. They stated that the FBI under Biden was investigating 92 Republican agencies, and that Kirk's group, Turning Point USA, was one of them.
Wow. So
I
actually had somebody ask me the other day, well, why was he such a threat? That he had
because people listen to him.
He would go into the belly of the beast.
Yep.
Leftist universities and colleges, and he would debate these people. And if you have watched his debates, he was full of hate. He was a homophobe.
No.
If you watch his debates,
no.
He was a masterful debater, and he never went to college. He never became, But I don't know anybody. I was on a varsity debate team at Whitmer High School when I was in high school, and I've been in my share of debates. I've never seen anybody like Charlie Kirk. The level of intelligence, the level of knowledge is
confidence.
The willingness to take on all comers.
Yep, come on up, grab a
mic, and he more often than not would just destroy people. That's what made him dangerous, because you're there. I remember one time a professor at one of these universities took Mike. He's a college professor, and Charlie just shredded him.
Oh yeah.
The guy didn't know what he was doing, but he was molding the minds of young people.
Right.
And that's part of the problem we have in this country. And I believe in my heart that nothing really changes until at least the world of academia gets straightened out.
I would agree.
Yeah. And there needs to be professors that need to lose their tenure, and they need to be booted. Period.
But even with that said, think about the hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars that were mishandled.
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking at the amount of educators versus the amount of admin.
Yeah.
Did you really need to spend 60% of your budget on admin versus putting it into the kids and the educators?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
Well, did you hear the latest on U of M?
Let's hear it.
Okay. University of Michigan, which, by the way, if you do not know,
they're loaded.
Not just that, but they are a leftist hive. It is considered the most left-wing school in the Midwest, University of Michigan.
U of M, no shit.
Yeah, U of M. So apparently they had a Chinese grad student.
Yeah, that brought in
her boyfriend, or handler, or CCP, whatever he was to her, brought in some extremely dangerous pathogens.
Yeah, which would destroy crops,
cattle, livestock, all livestock, and put the smackdown on a lot of people.
They found it coming in his shoes.
Yeah,
I believe.
It was, and when they laid it all out, footprint-wise, was this. I mean, it was a small footprint, and that was enough apparently
to grow bigger colonies.
All going on at U of M, unbeknownst to a lot of people. But here's my question: how much of that stuff, and maybe even other stuff, is here now?
Oh.
We have literally allowed the enemy within the gates. It's pathetic.
We're sleeping with the enemy.
We're sleeping with the enemy. Not only did we let the Trojan horse in the gates, we built the Trojan horse, and then recruited people to do us harm to enter the Trojan horse, and then we dragged it in. It's the most insane thing. Our founding fathers would be baffled. Like, what the heck is going on here? We went from, I have one regret, that I only have one life to give to my country, and then boom, home. We went from that type of patriotism to people that will sell you out in a heartbeat,
burn the flag, disrespect
men, disrespect women, disrespect
veterans, whatever. It doesn't matter.
It's insane. How we need to dig ourselves out of this hole.
I mean, the lack of respect. You're right. I mean, I've seen so many of these videos where elderly people are beaten and abused, and it's sick. So our country needs to heal.
It needs to heal. It needs to heal and be allowed to heal. There's so many people preventing things like that. It's like, this needs to be done. Trump was an inoculation for the better. And how many people acted like, oh my God, he's going to be the death of democracy?
No.
Wow.
I mean, how do you describe what's going on with the left now? I mean, do they feel like they have some type of sense of validation that they are taking care of the country and leading us in a direction of prosperity and peace? I don't know what they can claim. I
honestly don't know that they can comprehend what you just said as far as prosperity and peace or any of that stuff. So. They know their worldview comes from World of Warcraft. Their view of the world is so.
It's distorted. It's distorted, man.
It's distorted. And a big part of it, now I don't have any kids, and I don't mind saying it. A big part of it is there are no fathers in the homes anymore. If you look at the families who have fathers in the homes, and Charlie Kirk said this.
Oh, he called it out all the time.
Statistically speaking, I know that the left doesn't like to hear that, but statistically speaking, your child is way better off. And instead of admitting to that, there are people, millennials and whatnot, they have kids that defend it. Oh, you hate. No, we're talking about facts here.
Yeah.
Your kid is going to be 10 times more likely to steal a car by the time they're 13 years old and actually do his first stint in jail, juvie, whatever, by the time he's 15.
Yep.
These are just facts.
Right.
Now, those are facts I admittedly pulled out of my hind end, but they're not
but they're night and day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the point. So,
that's right.
Anyways, we got to take a break. We'll be back in a flash.
All right.
Back in the saddle, folks.
I'm back in the saddle again.
We kind of been all over the place a little bit, but I think that one of the things that we need to discuss a little further is Europe. It's in me and you talked a little bit earlier, the fact that the EU and NATO they're really pushing for peace in the Ukraine, but then Big Don's saying, hold on a second, not so fast, my friends. We're trying to put pressure on the Russians, and you guys are still all supporting them. You're buying their fuels from them. So, I mean, it's kind of a double negative.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Here's the thing, in case you don't know, most of Western Europe, in fact, I'd say all of Western Europe, gets their natural gas from Russia. And even though it is currently a war in Ukraine, you need to keep your house warm. And so, and that's an unfortunate reality.
Well, it's sleeping with the devil.
Sleeping with the devil. And here's the thing. I don't know how many people were paying attention in 2016. We actually, me too. We actually have a sea of natural gas in North America. I mean, it's endless. And I know this for a fact because I actually owned 3 and still do own 3 natural gas wells. So, we have the technology to pipe the natural gas to Louisiana and elsewhere, liquefy it, put it onto transport ships, and send it to Western Europe. And they can buy their energy from us. Their biggest benefactor.
Or mascot,
Cooper. Here's the thing. In 2016, when Trump went to demand that NATO pay their fair share, and because they were not paying their fair share, they were like a lot of people. Well, Uncle Sam's got us. And here's the thing that people didn't really put together. The EU's GDP is almost equal to the United States. So we're not talking about a whole bunch of peasant countries. Yeah, there's a couple of peasant countries, but most of them are not peasant countries. Germany is a manufacturing powerhouse in Europe. Yep. So none of them. Speaking of Germany, they had a chancellor then named Merkel. Yep. Chancellor Merkel. Yep. And she was a real piece of work. I was so happy to see her go. But she not only did not want to pay her fair share, she wanted the United States to foot the bill, and she wanted us to push back on the Russian bear. She wanted all kinds of things. And I can still remember it like it was yesterday. There was the President of the United States, Donald John Trump, sitting basically next to Merkel, and said, look, you're wanting us to defend you, but yet you're not willing to foot any of the bills. Yeah. And on top of that, you're getting all this natural gas from Vladimir Putin, putting money in his coffers, putting money in his ability to keep their military up to snuff, and have influence over Europe. And to be honest with you, allowing them the ability to invade the Ukraine, which would eventually happen after Trump leaves office, because they knew better when Donnie was in. They knew better. So I remember this like it was yesterday. Trump was looking at Merkel and really dressing her down because we had the ability to sell natural gas to them at a reasonable, competitive price. It wasn't like we were saying, well, you have to pay us. Yeah, that wasn't what was going on. So they just, right there, Donnie. No, yeah. And it was disgusting, and it made me mad. Not that anybody in Europe cared that Richard Hunter was upset. But the truth of the matter is that Don was right. The president was right. And the thing of it is, and I'll never forget this, they laughed at him. They laughed at him because they could do that through our media. I'm talking CNN. I'm talking MSNBC. I'm talking the New York Times. They made it possible for Europe to thumb their noses at us and at the president. They did that. They undermined our country. And real quick, before because I know you got stuff to say about this too, I believe in my heart, whether you do or not, that's another thing, but I believe in my heart that, and I said this I think in the last video, that Donald Trump, President Trump, needs to take a lot of these broadcast licenses, a lot of these
that's coming. The media
needs to dress down.
Yeah, it's gonna be discussed here in a few minutes.
Okay, so I won't go any further than that, but I will say this: what NATO did to President Trump was disgusting, and if I was Trump, I'd throw him under the bus. I would. And it's like, yeah.
But he's a smart man now. Look at what he's doing. They're all scrambling because Russia's knocking on the door. Mm-hmm. They're saying we've got to support the Ukrainians. He says, okay, that's fine. You pay your percentages. I'll sell you the weaponry to support them. Then you guys distribute it the way you feel it needs to be distributed.
Yeah. Who knows your opinions?
So it's a win-win situation instead of us bending over and taking it and taking it and taking it. So
I gotta say this too, and maybe it will reflect poorly on me. But I've never been shy about that. Before you come at me with some kind of a bizarre defense of Zelensky, you need to do a little homework. You need to take a look at who he really is. Now, who is he? Well, first of all, he's an actor. He is a showman and a transvestite. Yeah, and it's not a joke. I'm not joking about that. There are endless videos of him dressed as a woman, prancing around the stage. You people may say, well, yeah, but it was for the show. Look, he looked very comfortable in the little tutus that he was wearing. I'm just saying. Zelensky is somebody that I believe is a demon. Oh, I know, that sounds horrible, doesn't it? I think he's a demon. I think there are a lot of demons masquerading as world leaders. These are disciples of Satan. That's what they are. And Zelensky is single-handed. I don't want to hear about Vladimir Putin. Zelensky is single-handedly responsible for a whole generation of young Ukrainian men to die. They're dead. They're never coming back. And for what? That's all I got to say about that.
I can't agree nor disagree with the tutu part. I'm going to stay away from that piece.
It's on the internet.
But I will say this part. With the amount of money that we have dumped into
hundreds of billions of dollars,
and there's no paper trail, there's no accounting to it, and this is
only under the Biden administration. Anything like that.
I don't have a problem with us aiding anybody, but if we're gonna aid somebody, it's gonna go to what it's intended for. Yeah. And if that's gonna be the case, then we need to have accountability for it. There needs to be a trail.
Yeah.
Now, I've also heard that there's a ton of weaponry that we have sent over there that's being resold
on the black market. Yeah, there's weapons merchants making a lot of money.
And again,
at our expense. And we have Americans. I just drove down Main Street in Toledo, Ohio today. And we have people on the street corners with signs begging for whatever, people living under the bridge on Secor Road, you can see their sleeping bags and everything. And these aren't young people. These aren't 20-year-olds. These are people that are well into their senior years, sleeping on concrete.
That shouldn't really be a scene in our country.
No, it should not. And even if people say, well, yeah, but they're mentally ill. They may or may not be. But the truth of the matter is that we need to take our resources and help these people.
Yes.
Because mentally.
With USAID, with what we've seen, it was just pilfered. Yeah, let's give $10 million to monkeys screwing turtles and whatever.
And here's the other thing, and I know you'll agree with this, at least off camera. I got to tell you right now. That USAID thing opened up my eyes, and not that I didn't know this was going on, but I didn't know the level and the god-awful amount of money that was being doled out. And all of them, much like Ukraine, there's no accountability.
No accountability.
The CIA. No, I'm going to say this, and maybe it'll get me killed. I don't know.
I hope not.
Biggest problem that we have as a country is that we have allowed the Central Intelligence Agency, and this has been going on for decades and decades, to become an entity among itself, to become somebody or a thing, a giant monolith, a thing that we cannot control. I don't know who controls the CIA. I don't think they know who controls the CIA. or what groups control parts of the CIA. How much of the RCIA does George Soros account for? And they're taking U.S. tax dollars by the gobs, by the bucket loads, and they're shoving it here and they're shoving it there, manipulating here, manipulating there. And if there's anybody in other countries who hate the United States, these are the reasons why. Because you've got these unelected spooks that are manipulating the world. Now, maybe they've got you convinced that they have our best interests at heart, but they don't have me convinced. And I mean, look, here's the bottom line. Behind almost every single assassination, and I haven't ruled out Kirk's yet, behind every single assassination, political assassination especially, the CIA has had a hand in it. John F. Kennedy's, Ronald Reagan's, Gerald Ford's, MLK, along with RFK, all of them.
Kennedy boys, yep.
Yeah, all of them. I don't know how we address that. I don't know how we stop that. I don't know. It's hard to fight a spook. They're a spook. They're a ghost.
Yeah.
There's
nothing there.
There's nothing there, and I think that Elon Musk was onto it, and I think that's why the powers that be pushed him out, because he was pushed out. He was pushed out.
And with that being said, I don't want to make this into a big Elon piece, but I don't see him staying out permanently. I really
Elon?
don't. Yeah.
I don't think. Yeah. Well, listen. Is he really? I mean, here's the thing.
Is he really out?
Is he really out?
Yeah.
I think that he has taken a different angle. And listen, I think the Charlie Kirk assassination was an eye opener for him. Do you remember when?
Shit, man, he's got all kinds of death threats on him.
It doesn't end.
No.
Do you remember when Trump wasn't elected yet? It was after Butler, Pennsylvania. Elon Musk comes out on stage, and they had a big bulletproof glass thing.
Yep.
Elon Musk is a tall guy. A lot of people don't realize this, but he's a tall guy. And he comes out onto the stage. He was introduced by Donald Trump, and he comes out jumping with his arms up, jumping. He was jumping where his head was this far above the bulletproof glass, and he did that as kind of like, fuck you, take me out. Now I think he realizes, what the fuck was I thinking? Because this is real. People are dead.
Yep.
Oh my God. I'll tell you this off camera. I got something to tell you off camera. Remind me off camera. And it has to do with Kirk. But anyway, come sorry.
We're gonna circle back to media. Richard was talking about media a little bit, and these different outlets and the amount of disservice they're doing as far as presenting spew to the nation. And it's sad. And I actually told Richard tonight when he came in, I said, did you see they pulled Kimmel off the air indefinitely?
I did. It made me smile though.
So, but again,
what an evil, hateful, little trollish man. Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, and again, here's an entertainer that is.
How do you call him an entertainer? I will never entertain.
Excuse me, a supposed entertainer.
Right.
That should be entertaining.
Yeah.
That's pushing a political agenda.
Do you remember Johnny Carson?
It was the best.
Unbelievable.
It was the best. It was all.
And I used to come down on David Letterman, but to be honest with you, compared to this product,
exactly.
You know what's my favorite though? I don't know. I'm sorry. Was that British guy, Colin Ferguson?
Wow.
He was amazing. He was non-political, and he would have these beautiful starlets on. And he'd just sit there and he'd lay back in his chair and he'd have this little sheepish grin on his face, and he would talk to them and they would say they'd play a little footsie together, and it was refreshing because it was cute. And what happened with Kimmel and all these idiots, it became a shit show, a violent shit show that unless you were a leftist
Colbert.
Oh my God.
I mean,
Colbert.
You know,
he just gave him an Emmy.
And they're up.
Did you see that?
They're up in arms. Oh, this is political. No, it's not. It's economics. The guy has no numbers.
No. But here's the thing: they were so used to their parent organizations just.
Well, and that's the thing too. Now, I mean, look at who's stepping in, buying these different media outlets, and they're saying we don't need this.
Why
we don't need the backlash. And I think
here's what needed to happen, Bill. They needed to get back to the bottom line, which was making money for your shareholders. And I'll tell you right now, at one point, I'm just going to tell you this, I probably shouldn't admit to this. At one point, I was thinking about buying a few shares of Disney.
No way.
For no other reason than to make a stink as a shareholder.
There you go.
for I think their share when I was looking at buying it wasn't much. It was $28 a share. Yeah. I was thinking about I needed to buy 2 shares. I thought about this, legit thought about this. Yeah. Okay, if I bought 2 shares, okay, I could say that I owned shares in Disney. Hey, I didn't need to know how many shares.
You're a shareholder.
And I was going to make a series of videos ranting about Disney because they had remember they ruined the Disney franchise, or not? Sorry, the Star Wars franchise. And as a Star Wars guy, and I was 1978, I was a little boy. And, oh my God, it was the greatest thing ever. And then Disney got their hooks into it. And then what was that one show? It's season 2's coming out of The Last of Us. I think that was on Netflix, though. I'm pretty sure.
I'm not sure.
Well, The Last of Us was a post-apocalyptic ditty, and but everything, and it was cool. It was speaking of fungicides and stuff. That's the theory of it was that mushrooms were taken on. It basically was kind of a zombie movie, but mushrooms had this thing. In fact, one of my favorite scenes, because I dig post-apocalyptic things, there was a woman who was a professor and was the world-renowned authority on mushrooms and whatnot. And they found her, as in the government, found her eating lunch. And there they were, this old lady, she was probably in her late 70s, and didn't know what the heck was going on, but they said, we need you to see, there's something going, we need you to come with us. And she went, and they were talking to her about mushrooms. And there's a corpse in a morgue, and she went in, and she thought, there's something about body temperature, whatever, this just wasn't ever going to happen. But if it did happen, it'd be a very big deal. They pulled back the thing, and she could see a cut, and she could see the mushrooms growing in this person. And they said, what do we do? And she said, start bombing the cities right now. And I need to go home and be with my family. It was spooky. And everything was awesome because I liked spooky. Up until the part where the lead female, who was a young girl, probably, 14, 15 years old, they decide for some bizarre reason that she needs to have a lesbian affair.
Oh, Jesus.
I mean, and I'm like, why was this even, why?
Why is this in there?
Why is this in there? And that was the thing a lot of the media was doing. Shoving their agenda, their goofy ass agenda down our throats. Going against, and look, I believe that homosexuals have always been with us. But at a very small number, it's just, it is what it is. But they make it sound like that there's so many of them, they need to be well represented in media, and they don't.
Yeah. They 1%.
There I go off the reservation. we need to start bombing the cities.
Yeah, we got to get rid of the mushrooms.
That's it.
Bada boom. We're winding down here to about the last 7 or 8 minutes. I think something else that we want to talk about a little bit is the law enforcement thing. I think I told you when you came in today that there was 3 law enforcement killed in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that.
Two other injured. And again,
I know nothing about the backstory of it. I don't know how they were killed.
I don't either. But again, my point is this: just the amount of violence, the amount of
willful violence.
It's
like they wake up in the morning going, I'm gonna kill somebody.
There's we talked a little bit earlier. There's no value on a life, and it's just. It amazes me. And with that being said, this goes back into the crime crackdown also. How is it that you have a city and you have a crime problem and your murder rate is off the charts, your assaults, your robberies, you name it, okay, and somebody coming in and helping you is a bad thing?
Yeah.
Explain it to me.
Make it make sense.
Explain it to me, please. Somebody tell me how that doesn't make sense. Because it makes sense. Getting control back, law and order.
I can answer you.
People feeling safe.
20 seconds, I can answer you, Bill. The forces of evil are on the march, and anything that will go contrary to them destroying, it's a full-on scorched earth policy that they have. Anything that prevents them from continuing to destroy the United States, the West, and democracy and capitalism, anything that stands in their way must be just fallen under, must be destroyed. That's why they think when Donald Trump says, well, I'm going to go to Chicago, I'm going to send the National Guard there, we're going to stop 50 people getting shot every weekend, dozens of people every year, well, I don't even know the number, insane numbers of deaths.
It's stupid.
Babies being shot in the head while sitting in their
baby. You name it. Sexual assaults, drug deals.
The examples of depravity, the examples of death and suffering is endless.
Yeah.
And then you have a man who's like, you know what? We did this trial balloon over here in D.C. Guess what? They went 2 weeks with nobody getting killed.
Yeah. Amazing.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. You guys are the devil.
Yeah.
Go away.
But the forces of evil do not want Donald Trump being successful because he represents a different mentality in a different way, and he represents an America that they think needs to be destroyed.
Yeah.
And that's just not going to change. And I think that, if anything, the Charlie Kirk assassination, people in this country, if you were on the fence on which way to go, you have to side with the right. You have to. If you're a moderate Democrat, listen, I'm sorry. I know that your dad was a Democrat. He was a UAW guy, and he went hunting every weekend during hunt season with his buddies. Had bowling league and all of these things. But that's not the Democrat Party of today.
That ship sailed.
The ship sailed,
yeah.
And you have to come over to us, and we are a Big Tent party. You come over and say, hey, I've been a lifelong Democrat for the last 40 years of my life. Can I come in? Yes, you can come in. Not only can you come in, you have to. For all of us, for all of our sake.
Well, I think if you want to kind of sidetrack a little bit, that's what that Kirk's movement was doing. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was I don't want to use the word targeting, but it was trying to educate our youth of America to say that take the blinders off. What you've been told since you were in 7th grade through college, that doesn't necessarily mean that's right or it's wrong.
Yeah.
But there's other ways of looking at things. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what that Turning Point USA, we talked about this before, and actually I seen a great analogy on that this past week, and I think Trump was talking about poking the bear. Yeah. And he said, poke the bear. Go ahead, keep poking the bear.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do when that bear wakes up and it rips your face off?
Yeah.
He said, you guys ain't seen nothing yet. And this was after, Kirk's assassination. And I think it's a great analogy because I have seen and listened to a ton of people even talking about on the religious piece, they're talking about, listen, normally when I go to a service, I don't have to stand outside the building to go in here to get a seat. They're having to do double services now to accommodate the amount of people that are wanting to go in and experience, religion and the Lord, and to see what he was about as far as a person, mm-hmm. and his beliefs, and I just think that they poked the bear and now the bear's awake.
I hope it's what was it Yamamoto said, your very famous quote?
Yeah.
All we've managed to do is awake the sleeping giant. Yeah.
Yep. Are we ready to visit? Pizza's out.
Again, men and women of the armed forces, naturally we're always going to support you. Our first responders, God bless this glorious nation. And
Long live the Republic.
Long live the Republic, and God bless America.
Peace!
Out.